The Blue Jays are trying to bring new meaning to the phrase, it's better to have loved and lost than never loved at all. Meanwhile, the Guardians are experimenting with how often you can piss off your friends before they stop helping you.
Tanner Bobby of the Guardians, and you're listening to Locked On Guardians.
You are Locked On Guardians, your daily podcast on the Cleveland Guardians. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Guardians on a Monday morning headlines edition of Locked On Guardians. Today on the show, are the Guardians taking advantage of their friends, or are they just being cheap? Are you smarter than a projection system? The chances are Jeff and I are not, but we're going to try to talk about it. And we're going to make some bets on those projection systems and the Guardians on today's show.
Yes, but first, I want to take a moment to say this episode is brought to you by FanDuel. From the first whistle to the final drive, FanDuel makes the NFL playoffs even more exciting. Right now, new customers bet $5 and get, $300 in bonus bets if you win your first bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. I don't think we've ever seen 300 from them.
Talking about turn up the heat. All right.
Not in my house. You're going to see the heating blanket. It's all day.
It's cold.
It's cold here.
It's cold, but FanDuel's got the high. My voice just cracked. I swear I'm almost 36. My voice just cracked. FanDuel's turning up the heat while the temperatures are dropping. I'm Justin Latta. Jeff, I've been co-hosting with you here since 2022, but I've been covering the Guardians minor league system since 2007. Previously the editor-in-chief of Guardians/Indians Baseball Insider, also contributing at News Herald and the Morning Journal, and also Prospects Live, and my own Substack at nextyearincleveland.substack.com, where I've got much more prospect stuff coming.
I'm Jeff Ellis. They hired me off the street because they couldn't find anyone else to talk about the Guardians back.
They didn't want me either. Don't worry.
I mean, for a time, they didn't want me either. So, eventually they realized they couldn't do any better.
Redemption stories. Yeah,
they realized they couldn't do any better. And I've been here ever since. Before that, I wrote, about prospects and the drafts. It's gotten 24/7. As I said, and many times in the past, Cleveland is, we love the lottery ticket because things have been bad in sports for so long. Look no further than the Browns, right? It's top 2 pick. The Browns have picked more times, I believe, in the last 20 years in the top 10 than the Guardians have in the last 40. I mean, I would always put a bet on that. It's been, we love those high picks.
We do, yeah. We like the high risk, high reward. We could talk about that in the future, why we love prospects so much. I just appreciate that Lockdown and our listeners have expectations for us as low as the Guardians have for themselves. The bar is so low for our network, as far as we're concerned, our listeners, hopefully, and the Guardians. They're so lucky they play in the AL Central. Hey, speaking of our listeners, we do love you guys, and we appreciate all the support you guys have been giving us. We've been, for an off season that's been kind of as far as the Guardians are trading and not really adding. And money's being spent in a lot of places, not here. You guys have been really awesome this offseason, sticking with us through all kinds of things. We appreciate that. And, we did launch the Insiders program. Sign up for that. It's joinsubtext.com/LockedOnGuardians if you want to sign up. We're having a lot of fun conversations over there with the Insiders. We're talking about all kinds of things. Anytime the news comes out, we're talking about it. And we're going to be providing a whole lot of bonus content for you guys as well over there. Starting with February 1st, we are doing the Locked On Guardians live stream fest, where Jeff and I are going to do about 2 hours. I think it's going to be on Google Meet now instead of Zoom because logistics are just easier. But Jeff and I are going to be here kind of trying to be in place of Guards Fest. Not really, because we can't replicate what they do. But we're going to be here for about 2 hours on February 1st, just talking Guardians, baseball, prospects, draft, whatever, with all of our insiders. So sign up to be insider. You'll get the link when we set that up. You'll get the link to join that. It's going to be Jeff and I. Sully from Locked On MLB is going to be here. We've got a couple other guests that we're hoping will stop by for 10, 15, 20 minutes. They'll talk to you about baseball as well. So we'd love for you to sign up for that. This will be more than just, us chatting through YouTube chat. This will be your opportunity to actually jump on and talk with us live. So hopefully you'll join us for that. And we're about, 300 away from, a little under 300 away from being at 4K on YouTube. So if you haven't subscribed yet on YouTube, if you're new, if you like us even a little bit, or if you listen on audio, we'd appreciate if you gave us a YouTube subscription. We'll try to get to 4K before the season starts. So we'll see. All right, let's get to the fun stuff, Jeff. The Guardians sent another contract they don't want to pay to Toronto. Not Chris Antonetti, Mark Shapiro and Ross Atkins under the pressure up there in Toronto to make the playoffs. And this offseason, twice now, they've helped the Guardians out from paying contracts they don't want to pay. So is this a savvy move by Chris Antonetti and the Guardians, or is this them being a little bit cheap? And I'll see what you say first, and then I'll tell you why I think it's a little bit of both. I know it's kind of a waffle answer.
I don't think it can be viewed as cheap at all, because here's the thing: like, Straw wasn't good enough to make this team. He wasn't good enough to get claimed for free. If Straw was good at all, a team would have taken a risk, because it's hard to find center fielders, it's hard to find defense. When he got waived twice and no one jumped on him, that's all you really needed to know. Like, he just wasn't good enough. You can argue the other moves are cheapness, and yes, the Dodgers traded two guys who are probably like in their 20 to 30 maybe 15 to 25 prospect range for money. And sure, maybe Cleveland could have done that. The other issue is Toronto doesn't have the depth that the Dodgers had in terms of prospects. So, they made a deal that made sense with the Blue Jays in this situation. And I'm just going to go back to, like, everyone knows that Straw wasn't good, because every single, like, last year when they decided to remove him from the 40-man roster, that became like our best short for the last like 6 months at the time. People were so happy to see him off the roster. Yeah, they're moving money around, so they're going to be people who want to jump every time and be like, it's cheapness, and we'll have to see how this reinvestment goes, because it is about $5.4 million this year, which, I'm going to point out, they did make a play for Torres. They were like $6 million, I think, under what they spent a year ago, which, again, it's hard to say that they're not going to do anything until the trade deadline. I know people are probably going to say I'm giving them too much of a yarn. That's not I'm trying to think of the expression. I'm giving them too much rope. But last year they went out and they made those moves at the deadline to get that salary up to that point. So it's like the salary at the beginning of last season is not what it was at the end. And if they're competing, see if they reinvest. The one downside I'll say is there's not much left on the market. There's not a lot of meat left on the bone to help this team right now.
No, the Guardians really are treating, by the way, they're treating Toronto like Lucy and Charlie Brown football. Like, I feel like every time these two are trading together, like
Esmail Rogers, it's like, is anything? I mean, basically, this is all.
Yeah.
I mean, this is all like payback for when those great Blue Jays teams in the 90s were built off of terrible trades with Cleveland. Like, Cleveland did some terrible trades with the Blue Jays when I was a kid, when the Blue Jays like won World Series and stuff like that. So those
Joe
awful.
Carter. Is that what you're saying?
Was Joe Carter? No, because Joe Carter was the Padres. Yeah, but there were other deals. Was it like, because that's where they got Glenn Allen Hill and some other people? It was maybe Tom Candiotti.
Good Lord.
But yeah, it was like Glenn Allen Hill and Mark Whitten, I believe, were originally Blue Jays guys. But there were some terrible deals. Like, again, I'm almost I'm like 7 years older than you, so like I have a little bit more time. But I remember my grandma bemoaning the terrible deals with the Blue Jays, and Cleveland has made some really astute deals with the Blue Jays. Maybe the worst deal they made with the Blue Jays, one could argue, is Josh Smith for not JP Fires, and for Julian Merriweather. For a time, Merriweather looked like he might make him.
Josh Donaldson. Yeah.
Was it, or Donaldson? Yeah, that was it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, they keep this was an interesting one, at least in terms of taking advantage of the Blue Jays situation. The Blue Jays this offseason, I mean, the last two off seasons, the Blue Jays have been, they thought they were getting Shohei Ohtani. They thought they were in on Juan Soto. They were told they were a finalist for Roki Sasaki, and they've gotten none of them. And, they've gone, the Blue Jays have gone backwards the last couple of years. They made the playoffs to 2023, I think, and they haven't made it back since. I'm sorry, 2022 they made it. They played the Twins, right? I can't remember what year that was. Anyway, so they played the Twins, and that was the Twins' first playoff series win since like 2003, I think. So it was like 20 years between playoff series wins. The Blue Jays gave them that, and they've gone backwards since then. And they're about to lose Vlad. They might lose Bo Bichette, even though Bo Bichette struggled last year, blah, blah, blah. We don't care what, this is not Locked On Blue Jays, but they're desperate up there. And that's obviously Mark Shapiro and Ross Atkins, both former Cleveland front office guys. And they really took advantage of that situation. And this probably explains why the Guardians didn't spend a lot of money in the international market this offseason, because
it was also not a good one.
It was not, but for the Guardians, let's be fair, it's never good. They don't really produce a lot there.
I know, but it was viewed as one of the weaker ones in recent memory.
Like, outside of Sasaki, yeah.
Yeah.
So they took advantage of the Blue Jays' desperation. I can't believe the Blue Jays made that trade without any assurances that they were going to get Roki Sasaki, because now they're on the hook for that money, and I don't know what they're going to do with it. But not on the hook, but they didn't. Okay, so to be clear, people are going to ask this. The Guardians didn't actually trade any physical money to the Blue Jays outside of the money they're going to cover in the Myles Straw deal. Yeah. the international bonus pool works like the draft, where each team's assigned a slot, and you can trade away what is in your slot to
now
somebody
I
else.
see where you're going now. I see where you're going now. Now I see where you're going.
No, that's not where I was going.
Oh, I thought you were going to say the cheapness is not wanting to pay the $2 million in international money.
They didn't know. Well, yeah, they didn't trade any real money. They just gave the Blue Jays more money to spend in their pool by MLB rules. But no, I think you made the point about how, like, okay, so, Dylan Campbell is an okay prospect. We're not totally aligned on him, and he's not like anything like, I don't think he's special, but he's a good prospect anyway, I think, at least. The Phillies traded international money to the Dodgers thing. They got Dylan Campbell. So, and I know that the Blue Jays and the Dodgers are two different teams in terms of the farm system. So maybe Cleveland didn't have a chance to take the opportunity to grab an extra player, but they used their leverage here to move a contract that they didn't want to pay anymore, that nobody wanted to pay. And I guess the Blue Jays wanted to pay if they thought it was going to bring them Roki Sasaki. No matter what you see out there, the Blue Jays did not make that trade to acquire Myles Straw. They can say whatever they want. They could have had him anytime they wanted for free without giving anything back. Okay. Twice they could have had him for free if they really liked him.
But they could not have gotten the
$3.75 money.
Well, and the $3.75 million. Like they did.
Right. So they only wanted to pay him because it might have benefited them, and not because it benefited from him being on their roster. So this is not to denigrate Myles Straw, by the way, because I think there are. We can touch on this at the end, but there are good things about Myles Straw that aren't related to his money.
His fifth best comp is Tony Gwynn Jr. on Baseball Reference.
Yeah, way to pull that one out. Wow. But the Guardians took advantage of the situation to offload a contract they didn't want. They made a mistake on. They made a mistake on paying Myles Straw, and they used this as leverage to get out from under that contract. And you could say that's savvy, and it is, but it's only savvy if you, again, reinvest the money. Like, this is another situation where they extended a player and they realized they regretted making that extension. And this was I don't know, it's an equal mistake to Andres Jimenez, because I don't think Jimenez was that big of a mistake, but they jumped the gun too early on Myles Straw, and they were wrong about the player he could have been. It's only a savvy move if you take advantage. If this is just a way for them to get down payroll to get to a certain level because they feel they have to get to a certain level of payroll, then it's not savvy at all. It's just cheap. So unless they reallocate the money, it's still cheap. Because the other side of this is you could have gotten a prospect back. Maybe I know the Blue Jays aren't like as good as the Dodgers farm system, but maybe there was a player they could have gotten and said, here's $2 million international money. We'll take this prospect. That would have been more valuable to their farm system than not paying Myles Straw, because at least that prospect could be something. It's a lottery ticket. You said we love lottery tickets, and you could have maybe even traded that prospect in the future if you needed to. Could have been depth. You never know. It's certainly has more upside than paying Myles Straw.
Certainly,
so
there is that.
Yeah. So I think it only makes sense if they're going to actually do something with the money. Like, it's great and all they were able to make this move, and they made the Blue Jays look bad again, and they might have gotten their friends fired, because if they don't make the playoffs this year, the Blue Jays are probably out, or the Shapiro and Atkins are probably out. But if they don't actually do something with this money, then I think it's all for naught. It doesn't matter. So we'll see what happens there. Zips projections from our friend Dan Zimborski over at Fangraphs. We had him on the show a couple of years ago. We should do that again sometime. But
last year.
You can go back and look. Was it last year? Geez,
it's last year.
Gosh, I'm already forgetting things. I'm not even that old. We had him on last year. You can go back and listen to that episode. He goes into about his projection system and certain guys. We could do that again with him soon. But his projection systems are out for the Guardians. We're going to talk about who we are higher or lower on than his projections. We're going to make some bets on guys to underperform and outperform their projections on today's Locked On Guardians.
But first, let's take a moment and talk about our friends over at FanDuel. Talked about it at the top. I was blown away. $300 is a new high from FanDuel. From the first whistle to the final drive, FanDuel makes the NFL playoffs even more exciting, which, I mean, I'm recording this on a Sunday evening. We all just watched the drop, right? That certainly affected some bets out there, I'm sure. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win your first bet. That's $300 to keep the action going. I don't think, again, we've ever seen it hit that level. The FanDuel app is easy to navigate, and the variety of bets keeps everything exciting. Plus, when you win, you get paid instantly. No waiting around for your winnings, whether you're betting on your favorite team or just looking to add some extra excitement to the playoffs, FanDuel has you covered. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today and get started with $300 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Make the playoff season unforgettable with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL.
Thanks for tuning in today's Locked On Guardians. Again, you can get us wherever you get podcasts, on YouTube. Please subscribe there if you haven't already, or free on all the audio places as well. And we'd love if you sign up for the Insider program so you can join us on February 1st for the Insiders chat. Again, we're going to have a lot of guests. I think we're going to have, we got some feelers out to a couple people, some writers, some other hosts, some other friends that might join on. So we're looking forward to that. And like I said, we're having a lot of good conversations, and a lot of bonus content is coming your way. Jeff and I were just discussing like an additional podcast a week of Guardians/MLB stuff, mock drafts, some other videos, other stuff we're going to do over there as the season gets closer. I will definitely have some spring training content over there for you as well. I'm going to be in Goodyear this year from February 28th to March 3rd. So I'll definitely make sure I have some content from out there as well. So sign up for the Insider program and join us in the conversation over there. It's a lot of fun. All right, Zips. Jeff, are we smarter than a projection system? I'm going to say no. You're not smarter than a projection system.
The one they'll say about the projection systems, they have struggled a bit in terms of AAA projection for this team. Because I've been doing the Zips translation over here. It's like finally gave up on George Valera this year. Nolan Jones, like George Valera and Nolan Jones were guys that Zips had as top 10 prospects in all of baseball due to their numbers. So I'll say the one thing is right now we're not seeing full translation when it comes to hitting prospects. But it's, there's a reason why we look at it every year. It's a fun system. There's a reason why, Dan is kind of famous for it. And it's always good to look at. It's definitely another, arrow in the quiver in terms of just having as much data and information as possible.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. And I've been watching a lot of Are You Smarter Than Celebrity with my wife on Amazon Prime. It's been a lot of fun with Travis Kelce hosting. So I think I'm smarter than some celebrities, but I don't know if I'm smarter than a projection system. So definitely going to find that out. And as always with projection systems and science and all that kind of stuff, the projection system and the science is not wrong. It just learned more, right? That's how that works. It just learned more. It got more data on George Valera and decided it was time to make a new observation about George Valera. It wasn't wrong. It just got new data and interpreted it that way. So, Jeff, who is one hitter that Zips projected that you are higher on than Zips?
I think I'm higher on Carlos Santana in terms of the system. Like, it doesn't believe a lot in what he did a year ago. And the one thing I'll say is, like, we've seen a lot of stuff out there about like the adjustments he made and the things he has done and kind of how he has gotten smart. I don't know if I want to say smarter as a player, but that dude has made a lot of adjustments to continually get better in spite of his age, to find ways to outperform what he should be doing. Now, is he going to have another like 114, 116 WRC plus? No, I don't think we're going to see another, him having a second or third best year of his career. But do I think it could be a solid like 105, 106, 107, like 10, like a 10-point drop? Yeah. 20 point drop, which is like basically every 10 points is like 10 percentage points, right? Like it's, so I don't see a 20% reduction in his offense. I'm, maybe I'm being too Pollyanna-esque here, but I think that he is a player that I would be surprised if he performs as well as he did a year ago. But I think there's a lot of ways where he can get close to that level.
Yeah, for record, Zips OPS plus on Carlos Santana is projecting him at a 96 OPS plus. So if you want to say he's going to be 105, yeah, I think that's in the range of outcomes for Carlos Santana if he outruns Father Time one more year. I'm going to aim a little bit higher than you on Lane Thomas. I see that Lane Thomas is projected for a 106 OPS plus and a 416 slugging percentage. I think he bests both of those. I think that I'm a little bit higher on him for that. I think he's more likely to get like a 110, a 115. I think we saw some good things from him last year, and he's going into a contract year. Things happen in contract years. Guys perform a little bit better. There's some magic fairy dust there, and guys have some motivation to be a little bit better to go on the free agent market. There is pressure that comes along with that, but it says he can hit 243, 314, 416. I think he can add about 10 points to both of those. I could see like 253, 324, 426. I think even better than that. So I'm a little bit higher on Lane Thomas. How about pitching? Who are you higher on in terms of pitching than Zips?
It's really kind of jumped out on well, the one thing I'll say is like I feel like a lot of the pitching I'm lower on. I should state that like kind of ahead of time. Hunter Gaddis stands out just because it really kind of sees him as falling hard back to earth, and I wonder how much that has to do with these struggles when he was a starter. But I do want to take this moment to say I'm also it doesn't appear to be as high on Slade Ciccone, which makes sense because the numbers weren't great. And I don't know how much it takes into effect the environments that he played in. And I also got to throw, I'm on Lane Brodzinski's email list. I got to throw in this note with Slade Ciccone that apparently he was a guy that the Rays targeted at the deadline and didn't acquire. And Cleveland targeted him here. And don't get me wrong, there's some work to be done. I don't think he's going to start the year with the team. But when those two organizations want that pitcher, I think that says a lot about that pitcher. So I just figure out to say that I think he's got a chance to outperform.
That's who I had for pitching. I had the same one. I have Slade Ciccone. The metrics, the Zips projections do not really love him because he's a guy who's definitely stuff over results right now. And again, that's why we see in player acquisitions a lot of times teams are targeting traits and not stats. And a lot of people who freaked out about getting him. And there's the money thing involved, and Josh Naylor and betting on Carlos Santana to outperform him, all that kind of stuff. But yeah, the projection systems on Ciccone, at least here in terms of Zips, not great. Like they're saying a 424 FIP and not a lot of strikeouts and some walk issues. I agree. I feel like a lot better. I think by the end of the year, we will see Slade Ciccone on track to outperform Zips. I think we both have the same hitter when we say lower on Zips.
I told you I've got like three guys that I think I'll let you go first, so I won't.
Okay.
You can take your guy, and then I can go to whatever guy. There's a few guys that I'm not as high on that Zips is.
Zips has Jonathan Rodriguez, almost as good, a better producer than Lane Thomas, at a 250, 320, 421 line, a 109 OPS plus. I've seen Jonathan Rodriguez's approach in the minors. It's passivity. It lacks in zone contact. I just don't see it with the approach. Like maybe it's interpreting AAA numbers a lot stronger. And again, this is we're going to find out if we're smarter than a projection system or not. I am not taking Jonathan Rodriguez to have a 109 OPS plus this year at the major league level. I don't know if he's even going to get that time, but even if he did, I wouldn't buy it. Like out of all the guys on this list, that is not the guy I would be highest on among prospects and rookies. Like I just don't think the approach works. And the defensive WAR is not calculated here. It's a 0. Oh no, it is. It's got Lane Thomas as a -4 in terms of defensive value. So I don't know about that, but it's got 0 for Jonathan Rodriguez. Maybe it thinks he's going to be a DH. I don't know, but we know Jonathan Rodriguez is not a great defender outside of his arm. So I just don't buy Zips on Jonathan Rodriguez. I'm happy. I would be thrilled to be wrong because that would be a great development for Rodriguez and the Guardians. But I am not that optimistic, unfortunately.
Yeah, I understand that. For me, like I've got two guys outside of Rodriguez. Rodriguez, don't get me wrong, was near the top. One, Will Brennan with over 100 OPS. I feel like I've been waiting for him forever to do that. And then I know OPS plus and WRC plus are not a 1-to-1 translation, but it had Kyle Manzardo at a 120 OPS plus, and I love Kyle Manzardo. I think he's going to be great. But the only first baseman who had a higher than 120 WRC plus last year were Yandy Diaz, Nathaniel Lowe, Pete Alonso, Freddie Freeman, Bryce Harper, and Vlad Guerrero. Like that's elite group that he's being put in. And I love Zips, but I will say that if there's one thing I feel like doing this for a few years now and looking at it, it does tend to shade the guys who have some more passivity. And there's a little bit of that with Manzardo. There's a lot of that with Rodriguez. There was a lot of that with Valera. There's a lot of that with Nolan Jones. Like you can see if it's going to go terribly wrong, it's going to go terribly wrong on a guy who's passive.
Yeah, I think it's I don't know. We have to have Dan back on to talk about this again, but I do think there is the whole notion of swing less. Like I know Saris has wrote about that in the past. Like swinging less is more valuable because the pitches you take that you can't drive are better than the ones you're hitting ground balls on or striking out on. So I do get that to an extent. But I do think it's maybe that's one area it misses because is it taking into account like overall swing rate compared to other people, like guys like, and being passive inflates your walk rate, right? Because in
Mhm.
AAA you can get away with that because guys are not as good command wise, so they miss some things. So yeah, I think that might be something that misses. I will give you the guys I am under on in just a second on Zips, and we'll talk about some bets to outperform or underperform Zips as well on the rest of today's show. But first, we have to talk about our friends over at Rocket Money and steal Jeff's line. Look, we all have subscriptions. We have no idea we're paying for, right? Everyone's got every streaming service known to the aliens and us. The aliens exist. We know how much is out there. We don't know how much we're paying for, but Rocket Money makes it much easier to track these things down. It's kind of having like a personal assistant for your finances. I've used Rocket Money in the past too, because I definitely had subscriptions out there that I wasn't aware I was paying for, and I was trying to manage my budget. And it's the new year. We're all trying to make changes, right? We're all trying to be better budget wise and trying to make sure that we're not spending things unnecessary money on things we're not using. There's a lot of things out there that I was definitely not using that I stopped paying for thanks to Rocket Money, and it tracks things like goals, so you can automatically set aside money for the future. No more stressing about budgeting. So it'll help you cancel services and help you reach some financial goals this year. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/lockdown today. That's rocketmoney.com/lockdown. rocketmoney.com/lockdown. All right, so for Zips, you said Jonathan Rodriguez, you said Manzardo, a bunch of guys. For as far as pitching is concerned, I just finished writing this guy up for my prospects book I'm doing this year, my write-ups. Doug Nikhazy is a guy that I think I'm even lower on. Zips is not particularly high on Doug Nikhazy, and the Guardians added him to the 40-man roster last year or this offseason to protect him from the Rule 5 draft, but they've got him at a 4.52 ERA in 99 innings, 91 strikeouts, and I have to go and I lost him on here, a 4.85 ERA. And you're like, wow, you're even lower than that on him? Unless he takes a step forward in control with his new mechanics, like Nikhazy did overhaul his mechanics a little bit last year, so maybe he needs an extra year with them for them to kind of take root, because making those changes does take time.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe year 2 of those changes will be better for him, but he went from a guy who was walking 17% of batters to a guy who's walking 10% of batters, and that's definitely a significant chunk lopped off of his walk rate. But a 10% walk rate in AAA is still really high compared to the major league average. So I think he's got less stuff than Logan Allen. And Logan Allen, we saw what happened last year to Logan Allen. He didn't walk as many guys, but he definitely walked more guys, and we saw what happened to him. I don't know that I buy Doug Nikhazy's stuff being good enough to be like, this is like 6 starter level stuff, right? Like 4.85 ERA. Like that's solid 6 starter. Like that's a guy you're calling up to make like double header starts or a quick injury emergency. That's pretty solid, but I don't know if I buy it on Nikhazy. I think I have to see more in terms of what he looks like with year 2 of these new mechanics. I'm not ready to say that Doug Nikhazy looks like the guy I thought he would be out of the draft, which, I was high on him, right? I was really high on him out of the draft. I liked him. And now I've gone the other way on him. I've finally given up.
Yeah, you and I definitely, he was never my guy. But when I'm looking at stuff, the guys that I think it's interesting how high it is on Eric Sabrowski. I'm kind of curious to see how he continues to go. Luis Frias is surprisingly high on him as well. But I think for me, when I'm looking at this, I am just not I feel I don't have a lot of faith in Ben Lively. Like we talked about everything that went on with him. It's like he projects is like 1.7 WAR, and I know you're really only going for a 2 WAR to be league average, but like I I don't have a lot of faith there. And then I love Nick Enright to death. I feel like his is a little inflated right now just because he was so good in such a small sample. And he's been good in the past. And I do think he'll be an option to help this team this year as long as he's healthy. Don't get me wrong. I think Nick Enright, they put him on the 40-man for a reason, right? You know, like he was protected. But they have him as like the third or fourth best reliever in the pen based on fourth best if you don't count Henches, who it's really high on Henches, who's not going to pitch at all. I guess that could have been the cheat target, but it's the system's super high on him. So it's a lot of the relievers. The relievers get a little janky with it, but overall, I can see where it is, why it's going with the guys it's going with.
Yeah, I looked at the Enright one too, and I thought that would have been an easy way to go with this experiment, but yeah, it definitely is very favorable to Nick Enright, and he didn't really pitch last year that much. He was hurt, and I don't know how much it weighs innings pitched to performance. Again, we have to have Dan back on to kind of ask him about how these things work again, I feel like. But yeah, that would have been an easy way to go with Nick Enright. I hope they're right, because we both love Enright's story. It's a great family. He's a great kid.
Also, 99. Let me just one last shout out to 99. There's no way that dude's going to have a 92, ERA and a 4.18 FIP and a ERA plus of 109. Let's be honest. There's the guy who you can really say is like, okay, this
might do that in
the
he might be able
Mexican
to do that
League?
in the Mexican League. Yeah, you can go to the Mexican League and do that. It's a tough environment to pitch in. The elevation's very high, but yeah, he doesn't even currently have a team. All right, so let's make some quick bets before we get out of here on today's show. We don't have to spend a whole lot of time on these, but I'll just give you some bets. So I'm going to give you my hitter first to outperform some of their stuff on Zips. And this is one I hope I'm right on. It's going to be interesting if I am. So Zips currently has this player to hit. What did I say? I lost a stat, of course. It's kind of high on him. It's got him hitting 232, 317, 367 with a 95 OPS plus. That is Juan Brito. I'm going to take Juan Brito to beat that. I believe in Juan Brito's pitch selection. I believe in his ability to lift the ball to his pull side. It's all bat, right? I'm not taking anything on the defense here, but it's all bat. But I'm betting on the metrics here of a guy who makes enough contact, a guy who draw some walks, the guy who maximizes his ability to pull the ball in the air, which the Guardians love. So I'm taking Juan Brito over the slash line of 232, 317, 367, and over a 95 OPS plus.
I guess I'd be too lazy just to say Santana here again. So, instead, as I go through the data and kind of look at what they have, what I'm tempted to say is that Jose Ramirez and go over the 4.8 WAR. If he can do,
wow, okay.
I don't know. I'm thinking he can be a 5. Like, what was he last year? Wasn't he like a pretty consistently? He's been like a 5 or 6 WAR player.
It was like his third best year ever of his career. Yeah, he was 6.5 last year. You're right. Yeah. He's only been under 4.8 since he's been a regular. If we don't count 2020, 2 times. If you don't count 2020, he's only been under 2 times since he became a regular. So
2019 when he was hurt and missed some time, and then 2023 where he was hurt but didn't miss time. Right? That was 2020. No,
it was 4.6. So he was right there.
So it's like
that was a thumb injury year. Yeah.
Yeah. It wasn't. That was 2022. He still was 6 WAR that year. So yeah, I think and it likes him as a offensive player, and his defensive value isn't terrible. So it's interesting that it only has him at a 4.8.
That's a good one. I like that one. Pitching wise, this one's going to be really controversial. Maybe this is low hanging fruit. Maybe it's not. There were a couple of easy pitching ones we could have gone with. Zips has this pitcher with a 4.77 ERA and a ERA plus, which is kind of like OPS plus, but for pitchers. This one has this pitcher at. Of course, I lost this one again. This is great podcasting when you lose exactly what you were trying to find before. Anyway, ERA plus. I don't really care what ERA plus is, but it's Tristan McKenzie. Tristan McKenzie is in their estimation at a 90 ERA plus and a 5.37 FIP. I'm going to pull one more time for Tristan McKenzie to figure it out. He has been an every other year guy at points. I'm going to say that Tristan McKenzie is a little better than this. I think they're going to give him every opportunity to prove it, I think. And I don't know. I'm going to stick it one more time and say that Tristan McKenzie might actually be valuable this year. And I am fully prepared to be wrong on that.
I'm gonna be lazy again, and I'm gonna bring up friend of the show, Tanner Bibby. I'm kidding. Of course, I know it's Bibby. Just having some fun with everyone. But it's got him at only having 163 strikeouts and only 29 starts. I believe he's going to be a 30 start guy every year. He had 31 a year ago, 173 innings. He had 187 strikeouts a year ago. So when I was going through it, I'm like, only one, he's projected to lead the team at 163. That's a drop. And I think he's just getting better. We saw some new pitches a year ago. I don't know if I'm saying he's going to like take a leap or anything, but he's getting better every year, it feels like. So I think again, because I'm trying to avoid the under, want to end on a positive note. So let's go with the over that Tanner is going to have more strikeouts than Zips projects.
Yeah, that's the easy one. I think you're right. That is easy. Three projected for 3 wins above replacement. I can easily see him beating 3 and getting into the 4 range. My under bets here are this. I hope I'm wrong on this because actually the projections here are somewhat positive on this guy. Surprising to what he's done. But my under for Zips projection is going to be Bo Naylor. Bo Naylor projected a 100 with a 100 OPS plus. I unless he makes some significant changes from a year ago in terms of chase rate and contact rate, the guy stopped walking. He chased everything out of the zone. He is completely the reverse of the prospect he was. The guy was almost passive and never chased in the minors. Now he is chasing everything and is not as passive as he used to be, which I don't know what's happening here. But until I see a change, I can't buy that Bo Naylor is going to be a league average offensive production guy. I just can't buy it right now. I hope I'm wrong.
I'm gonna start with pitching, and then I'll do hitting. I'll do the reverse for you. Keeping it positive again. ERA, Class A is at a 2.15. That would be his second worst ERA in his time in Cleveland. It's projection, so I'm gonna bet the under. Under, because the under bet. So I'm keeping it positive by doing under on ERA. Like I said, I'm trying to keep it positive here on a Monday. But a 2.15 would be the second worst outside of 2023. Which also was, the bad year for Jose. So it was just a snake bit year. But you look at it, it was 0.61, 163, 129. Like it's not even 2.15 is like almost a run higher than his next lowest one. And so I think that is, I'm going to go the under, even though the system loves him a lot. I think that he is going to outperform, what they have there.
I guess I'm taking this in the negative sense, but, so, okay, my positive was Tristan McKenzie. That's a positive.
Yeah.
Logan Allen projected for 4.26 ERA, and
really likes Allen.
It really likes Logan Allen. I don't agree. And you and I were both really high on Logan Allen when he came up in the draft. We really liked him.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm looking at like the strikeout numbers, the walk numbers it has projected for him, and I don't see that translating. Like I just don't see him being. He's listed at 1.4 wins above replacement for FanGraphs. It seems very odd that I'm buying Tristan McKenzie to be better and Logan Allen to be worse, but the floor is pretty low on McKenzie and the floor is a lot higher on Allen in these projections. So I'm not buying Logan Allen having that bounce back.
I'll take the under. I'll take the under on everyone projected to have 13 home runs. For those following along at home, it's Khalil Watson, George Valera, Juan Brito, Esteban Florial. Can we throw in Alex Planez at 12? It says like if these guys got to plate appearances, they think they could get there. It's the way the system works. It's always a little bit funny with it. If I'm taking a real one though, I'm going to take the under on Noel with. I'm not going to say home runs, but it's got him with 22 doubles, 22 home runs, and 2 triples. So if you're doing quick math, that's 46 extra base hits. I'm going to go the under on his extra base hits. And if he gets 540 plate appearances, I'm going to take a massive over on his 150 strikeouts. He'll get to 200 if he gets 540.
That's true. You're right. All right. Thanks for listening to the Monday Morning Headlines edition of Locked On Guardians. If you want more content from us, we'll be back Wednesday and Friday this week as well, but we're also doing some bonus stuff coming in the future here. Jeff and I are talking about like just an extra bonus episode a week. of random topics related to the Guardians that we don't get to during the week, and then some base MLB related stuff that's not necessarily Guardian stuff. So sign up to be a Locked On Guardians insider for that over at Subtext. You can also email the show at LO Guardians Show. It's 2 S's there. Guardians Show at gmail.com if you're interested in just emailing with us, whatever. Leave us a review. Appreciate all that kind of stuff. Sign up, all that good stuff. So yeah, Jeff will be back with you on Friday. I'll be doing Wednesday. I'll be talking about if the Guardians offseason is done and ownership accountability. I've seen some interesting stuff in the news this week about Guardians potential ownership stuff. So I'll discuss that on Wednesday. And Jeff's got a Reddit mailbag coming your way on Friday.
Yep, I just posted on Reddit. So if you have a question, go throw it in there, and I will be I'll be taking those. I want to again. Oh, wait 1 second. Sorry. Got a cat jumping on me just to make this as awkward as possible at the end of the show. Thank you all for joining me. Remember to rate and review, download daily, all that fun stuff. It all helps. As Justin mentioned, same cat as the one that's smacking in the face. As Justin mentioned earlier, we are very close to 4K on here. So let's get that. And thank you all. Stay warm and go Guardians, go.